All right, everybody, welcome to today's video. Yep, I look a little bit different. And the reason is because this is all about the storytelling of Mr. Ballin. Now, if you don't know who Mr. Ballin is, I want you to go and like and subscribe his YouTube channel because he is by far the best storyteller that I've ever heard in my life. If you guys like the strange and mysterious, then he's your guy. Now, I'm going to try to do it justice by telling a little bit of story in the Mr. Ballin fashion. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Maybe invite the like button to come in your house, and once he gets in, feed him, and before he gets his food, kick him out. Today's video, we're talking the Phantom Armadillo. Okay, so we're going to take you guys on a journey way back to Florida, 1982. In 1982, the Sorensen family had 6 kids, from 10 all the way to 3 years old. Now, this story is about the second oldest kid named Jason. Dallas and Colleen lived in the middle of nowhere, 4 miles from Bunnell, Florida. Now, if you've never been to Bunnell, it is pretty small in itself, but where they lived was actually called Haw Creek. Haw Creek is one of the prettiest places in Florida you've ever seen, but is still very rural. Now, this house in particular that they lived in was 4 miles away from the nearest neighbor. So they pretty much got to do whatever they wanted to do. Jason loved to hunt and fish. This place was perfect for Jason because as soon as Jason would get home from school, he would get out of the bus, go get his .22, and he was off in the woods. And he did that pretty much every day. He would either have a fishing pole or he would have a gun, and he would go all over the property. They owned thousands of acres and they didn't have any neighbors, so why not? Now, Dallas and Colleen pretty much let Jason do whatever he wanted, and they do the same today, that he pretty much does whatever he wants to. Now, Jason was 9 years old. His oldest brother was a year older than him, and Jason and Shane would go out in the woods and they would find things. Back in Florida, most of the people raised cows, and this family in particular raised cows as well. Now, the reason that that's very important is because I'm going to bring you back to that a little bit later. So Jason pretty much loved what he did. He got to go and fish and play in the woods, and he was usually with his older brother Shane. Now, you got to understand, back in these times, there were a lot of armadillos in the area. And armadillos were not good for ranchers because, one, they made holes in their fields, and if you've ever been on a horse and a horse got into an armadillo hole, it could break their leg. Now, on this day, Jason had come home from the woods to find an armadillo digging up Colleen, his mother's, flowers. So he shot the armadillo, and the armadillo didn't die. Jason didn't know what to do. So he felt so bad for the armadillo, he decided, hey, how about I nurse it back to health? And that's what he did. For 3 weeks, Jason would get off the bus and he would go feed and water his armadillo. And slowly, the armadillo came back to health and started doing really well. Jason knew in the back of his heart that he was going to eventually have to release the armadillo. And the time came about 4 weeks after he'd shot it. Now, he decided before he let it loose, he was going to do one thing, because this was now his pet armadillo that he loved so much. So, now I go back to the reason it's important, because of the cows. Now, Dallas, just like all the other ranchers and farmers in the area, his family had an earmark that was registered to the state of Florida, that they could tell by an earmark and a brand that that was Dallas Sorensen's cows, or his ranch's cows. So Jason decided, you know what? I've already put a bullet in it. I'm going to earmark that armadillo so everybody knows this is my armadillo. And so Jason did. He put 2 notches in its ear, and then he let it loose. But he didn't just let it loose in the yard. He took it way into the forest, miles away from his family's house, so nobody would hurt his pet armadillo. 6 months later, Colleen walks outside and is enjoying a beautiful day and looks over her flower garden and sees an armadillo digging in the flower garden. Now you have to understand, Colleen had never shot an animal in her life, but she had target shot as kids, so she knew how to handle a gun. So she went and got Jason's .22 out of the house. Unbeknownst to her, the bus was a half-mile away, and as she went inside the house and got the gun, she pulled up and shot the armadillo right as soon as the bus door opened, and Jason and Shane heard the shot, and they ran to the house to see what was going on. When they got to the house, they saw Colleen and this armadillo. Jason was so distraught. "Mom, you shot my pet armadillo." Colleen could not believe it, but it was right in front of her. And of course, she saw the earmark and the previous bullet wound and went inside the house. Jason was sobbing. He didn't know what to do about the armadillo. They were going to come outside and bury it. When they got outside, the armadillo had got up and went into the forest. Now, Jason looked all over the place because this was his pet armadillo, and he was going to make sure it had a proper burial, but he never found it, and he felt so bad. And for years and years and years, he never ever let his mom live down the fact that she had killed his pet armadillo. Now fast forward 30 years. The family's grown. Now there's 8 kids in the family. There's spouses and there's lots of family. Now Dallas and Colleen, they were like normal parents where you just went on a family reunion. If you went to a family reunion, you knew you were going to go build fence. Now, this time in particular was no different. They invited all the family. Property needs all this fence replaced. In Florida, there's a lot of rotten fences. Now, because everybody had spouses, they had kids, the more the merrier. So they had Shane, the older brother, go out on this section with somebody. And then Jason went out on this section. And Colette went out in this section, and Ramona went out in this section, and all the spouses and all the kids went all over building fence. Now you have to understand, this is 30 years later. Shane calls and says, "You guys are not going to believe what I just found in the fence." Now, for the most part, if you've ever built fence in Florida, it's probably a rattlesnake, a moccasin, something gross like that. But Shane calls and says, "No, you're going to want to come look at what I found building fence." So Shane picked this object up and took it back to the house for everybody to see. And you won't believe what was in his hands when everybody showed up. Shane had found the phantom armadillo. Now, if you guys don't believe me, it's 14 years, says Google. 14 years life expectancy for an armadillo. Now, this particular armadillo was probably a few years old when it had been shot the first time. But the phantom armadillo showed up again. Shane had in his hands the same armadillo that had ran into the woods 30 years previous to that. And it was beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was the same armadillo. 2 notches in its ear and 2 bullet wounds within an inch of each other. Now, when Colleen shot this armadillo, it was laying down. She knew it was this particular armadillo because 2 notches in the ear and 2 bullet holes on its side. Colleen came to the truck and everybody's talking, and all Jason could say is, "Mom, I'm sorry, but it looks like you didn't kill my armadillo." Now, this ends this story today, but I want you to know that this is a true story, and I know this for a fact. I was the youngest kid in Florida during the whole armadillo story, and my whole life I had heard Jason talking to his mother about killing his pet armadillo. Now, fast forward 30 years, you won't believe, in the back of this truck is an armadillo with 2 notches in its ears and 2 bullet holes. So they thought about mounting it, but instead they let the armadillo loose where they had found it to live for who knows how much longer. Now, if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel, Heck Yeah Adventures. I would love to have you part of the team. I am going to be doing a lot of videos, hopefully complimenting my favorite YouTubers. So this is in the fashion of Mr. Ballin, and thank you very much. So let's buckle up, put on your seatbelts, and let's go for a ride together.